Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and iniBuilds has just released the brand new version 1.0.11 of the A350. This is a huge update in terms of the features that have been added. So while a couple of you have complained that the pace of their update has really slowed down a little bit, that is true, but they definitely kept working at the same speed. So let's go ahead and have a quick look into some of the most important things that have been added with the update. As always, the update can be downloaded through the ini manager, and on top of just downloading the update, I would personally recommend that you also clear your WASM folder. Now, this may sound a little bit trivial for some, but in the past I used to get some WASM crashes from the aircraft, which ultimately turned out to be a problem that was caused by the simulator not properly creating the new WASM files. So, how can you actually delete the WASM folder? Well, you are going to find a lovely little link in the iniBuilds forum that you'll also find in the video description below, where they explain to you exactly how to do that. Now, on a more personal note over here, you don't have to delete the work folder, you can just delete anything below, but if you delete the work folder as well, that's not going to make much of a difference. But now let's go ahead and have a look into the actual update itself. And once again, you will find that information in the forum post, but you are also going to find that one linked in the video description below. So, Update 1.0.11 comes with quite a lot of new features, and I want to start in a little bit of a non-chronological order over here, because I want to start right down here, and that's with the printer that's been added. Now, you may be surprised to hear this, but printers are actually a very commonly used feature on Airbus cockpits. Even though everybody talks about paperless flight decks and everybody talks about having those lovely EFBs where you can send messages on, the reality is you hit the initialize flight button in your ACARS and something comes out of the printer. And you can actually see this down here now. So it is going to print stuff like your flight number, basically your flight plan initialization. It's just going to print that. Now, airlines can actually configure this to include different types of information. iniBuilds modeled one specific one over here, but we're not going to go into details as to which one that exactly is. Now, apart from that, you can print a lot of different stuff. So it starts with the weather, the ATIS, CPDLC messages. Then there's a lot of stuff from your FMS that you can print as well, such as your takeoff data. And all of that can now be printed in here, and then you'll find it on the clipboard as shown on the second picture down here at the side, and then you can have a look at your printed data. Now, iniBuilds themselves write that you can do things such as takeoff data, flight plan, metas, mailbox, which basically means CPDLC messages here, but also, for example, your departure clearance. So if you get a PDC, it is normal procedure that you are going to print it with many airlines. Now, the data is already available in the OAS, remember that's the EFB and the FMS, but you can print it to cross-check and reference, as iniBuilds writes. That really basically means you can print it in order to have it readily available over here at the side. Especially with things such as your pre-departure clearance, which may include a departure frequency if you have that dialed up, or if you have that at least ready and stuck to your clipboard over here during takeoff. That's definitely a useful thing to have. Now, a small word over here. The real-world airlines can actually configure what information is automatically printed and what is not. So, for example, in my airline, we have a configuration that any weather-related messages will automatically be printed. Now, there are a couple ways around that if you really want to save that paper, because one roll of printer paper costs about $40 US. So, yeah, it is that expensive. After all, it has to be aviation certified paper. So these settings depend a little bit per airline, and iniBuilds has chosen to model one particular one over here, which is of course all good and well. Now, apart from that, they have added a couple more new features, so let's just start at the very top. First of all, we're starting with new fly-by-wire features, and they have added the auto derotation system. You might have noticed that on a lot of previous landings with older versions, the aircraft had a tendency to touch down with the main wheels, and then the nose wheel just came flying down. Do that in the real world, and you can have made the smoothest touchdown ever with your main wheels. The guy sitting in the front, and that's where the most expensive tickets are sold, will just feel that the airplane just impacted the ground when your nose wheel does. So that's a really important thing on wide bodies. On narrow bodies, it is already a thing, but on wide bodies where there is such a distance between the main wheel and the nose wheel, you really have to do 3 landings. First the aft boogie, then the forward boogie, then the nose wheel. If you mess up any one of them, your passengers ain't gonna be happy. For example, on the A330, I have that tendency at the moment, I can be honest, to really grease the aft wheel. But going back to my 737 days, I always immediately deploy the thrust reversers, that deploys the spoilers, and that makes the forward boogie just fall down. And due to the geometry of the A330 landing here, when the aft wheel touches down, the forward wheel is around about half a meter to a meter above the runway. So you can guess what happens when the forward wheel falls down from that height when the spoilers extend. Yep, ain't good. Is something you gotta work on in the personal landing technique, and that is one thing that I'm currently working on. So there's always that. And well, take a good guess at how long it takes to work on that when you only do like 3 landings a month maximum. Sometimes even just 2 or 1. There have been months this year where I didn't do a single landing at all. Well, long haul life, that's what it is. Alright, so in any case, the addition to the new fly-by-wire system is the auto derotation system, which basically assists the pilot in doing a smoother nose wheel touchdown. That's just about the easy way to say this. Apart from that, they do have enhanced GPS jamming, and this now actually happens on a live map, which is really cool. So they do gather data from the real world, where GPS jamming is currently taking place, and when you fly into that area, you will receive the symptoms of GPS jamming. Now, this is not just a really cool integration because it simply gives you this, let's call it, more realistic feature, but something that you actually get from this is the different levels, because you can see over here how severe the jamming may be in certain parts of the world, and then you can see that in not far away it actually may have a different level of severity. So just because some things may go wrong, as you can see over here with the TCAS, nav primary lost, you keep flying for a little bit and all of a sudden it totally changes its symptoms. And to be honest, I did fly through GPS jamming areas in the real world. It was usually a no-brainer. You just change the clock to internal and the rest of it is, well, just keep flying. Because the remaining nav systems are just really good. But it's really nice to see iniBuilds has integrated this now, which is surely going to make flying across the different parts of the world a lot more interesting. Especially because I know there are flight simmers who just don't care about current real-world situations, which is, of course, an absolutely acceptable means of using your flight sim. But if you now fly through a certain zone where you may not want to fly in the real world, you may fly into one of these GPS jamming areas. So that's a really cool thing that they have added. So that's the enhanced GPS jamming. Now, another very nice feature for those using the default flight planner is that you can now uplink that into the FMS. And one that I really like is the condensation effect. Now, what does the condensation effect do? Basically, when you're flying into an area where you have a very moist air, think for example the Caribbean, and your aircraft is descending into that area and the air starts to condense within the air conditioning system, then you will see that, let's call it white smoke coming out of the air conditioning system, and you will also see the water condensing on the flight deck windows. Now, the latter is what iniBuilds has modeled over here. And why exactly does this happen? Well, quite easy. You have a very cold airframe, so even the windows, not all of them are heated, depending on the aircraft type. for example, the 737 did not have the aft flight deck windows heated, then you are descending, and as you're getting into the warmer air that is also a lot more moist, contains a lot more water, then your cold airframe is going to cause water to condense on those windows. And that's exactly what iniBuilds have added over here. Now, even though the aft flight deck windows are heated, you will still see that, especially towards the sides of the windows. Now, on the 737, where the aft flight deck window was not heated at all, this could really lead to the aft window becoming totally blocked and you couldn't see anything, even on just a normal summer day. Now, even when those windows are heated, as they typically are on Airbus aircraft, you are still going to see moisture forming along the sides of the windows. So that's a really, really cool thing that they've added. Also, you've got a couple of new eCams, and then, of course, a huge changelog with things that they have fixed once again, including a couple of things that I've reported. I've just been on a call with one of their developers for quite a bit, talking about a little bit of things that they can improve with their aircraft. Well, my friends, and that's going to be it for today's update. So be sure to download it using the iniBuilds Manager. The Marketplace version will, of course, become a little bit later because it's Marketplace. It takes a little bit of time. But do download it using the iniBuilds Manager. If you're on Xbox, you can look forward to the aircraft coming there, as well as it is going into the last testing phases, and then will hopefully be released for Xbox as well. But for the time being, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found this one interesting. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. Let me know your first experience with the aircraft. And with that said, I'm really looking forward to see you all again on the next one. But as always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and then enjoy your weekend flights.